And I love football, though. I find it incredibly fascinating. I find it simultaneously simple but complex. The business of football, though, is a very different beast. And it's something that when you start diving into, it really shows you what runs this country, what runs the academic programs of this country, whether it be the University of Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, LSU, the big collegiate powerhouses that we have in this country. Football not only runs these schools, but supplements every other sports program at major D1 Division I college athletics. Football is the bankroll. It's the reason you have a women's basketball team. It's the reason these colleges have lacrosse teams and tennis teams and badminton teams. It's the reason for it, because football is a fucking cash cow in this country. And there probably hasn't been, and if there is, I don't want to make this a blanket statement because I haven't seen it. I've admittedly lacked on documentaries in recent time, but there might not be a better, there admittedly might not be a better documentary to show that fact than BS High, which is currently streaming on Max, directed by Martin Desmond Rowe and Trevon Free. I want to give these two dudes names. I want to give them name drops, and I want to name drop them a couple times because, man, these are some good directors. These are some good directors. I find documentaries to be, and I've been reviewing documentaries since I started reviewing movies back in 2009. I find documentaries the hardest types of movies to review because of the fact that it's like, am I interested? Do I love the story or do I love the movie? Or do I love the idea and the themes that the story brings on? Or do I love the approach? And it's something that I wrestle with constantly when I watch documentaries, because I feel like it's tough. As somebody like me who has a lot of different vested interests, I can go from talking to you about ringtone rap of 2007 to Ren and Stimpy and its problematic creator in the 1990s to country music of the 1950s, all of which topics on documentaries I've watched. I find documentaries the toughest to review because of the fact that I wrestle with the fact, am I interested in the story and the subject, or do I love the way it was approached? And I love both when it comes to BS High. I think this is a terrific documentary about a slimy piece of shit person. And also, too, a really deceptively intricate scam at the same time that it wasn't a deceptively intricate scam. The movie focuses on the Bishop Sycamore High School scandal. Now, I remember when this game aired on ESPN. I want to give a little background here. I remember when this game aired on ESPN. I didn't watch it, but I remember seeing it on TV. It was Bishop Sycamore High School versus IMG Academy. I remember seeing that game air on TV. It was 2021. It was in late summer. I want to say August. August of 2021. I remember seeing it, and I remember seeing Bishop Sycamore trending on Twitter, and I'm like, what is this? And I remember like scrolling through, and I'm like, there's some high school playing on ESPN. And at the time, you got to think of the context. This was about a year and a half after COVID, or year and a half during COVID, if you want to think of it that way. And I remember looking at it and thinking like, God, ESPN must be pressed for programming. They're airing a high school, matchup on their premier network. But the film follows Bishop Sycamore High School, a fake high school in Ohio, and largely centers around Roy Johnson, the head coach of Bishop Sycamore High School. Bishop Sycamore Centurions, as they're known. And it basically talks about how this fictitious high school and this completely falsified athletic program, specifically the football, obviously, the football program, was allowed to pass as a football program in the state of Ohio. And it is royally fascinating. It has this very intricate sort of device that it uses where it incorporates Rowan Free, the directors of the movie, into interviewing Roy Johnson, because as far as the talking heads are concerned, he probably takes up most of the movie. And it lets him try and tell the story of how and why this fictitious high school came to be, why he was recruiting these left out players, or these left out post high school kids that were in their late teens, early 20s to play the game of football, and how he basically used these kids, as a way of financial gain in completely poor fashion, I might add. There is so much to unpack. I have to give credit to Joe, too, because Joe is the one who put this movie on my radar. I would probably not have seen this movie, despite having known the story, or at least a little bit of the story, if it wasn't for Joe. Joe was the one who was like, it's going to be a slow couple of months here with the writers and actors strike going on. BS Highs on HBO Max. Watch it. And what a watch it was at 96 minutes, to say the least. Dom, I'll throw it over to you, man. I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
If this documentary has proven anything, it is that Black people really do have it worse in America, no matter what. And I say that because when a white con man gets this whole operation together and tries to make it this big thing, and it blows up spectacularly, a bunch of vloggers get stuck on an island overnight, and that's whatever. And then it's funny. When a Black con man tries to make some big thing and it blows up, like, not children, young adults, very young adults, they are dying on a football field and sacrificing their bodies, and their futures are legitimately being screwed. Like, their whole like future, the rest of their lives are in jeopardy. Their hopes and dreams are being crushed, not even let down, because, you know, no matter what, not all of these kids were ever going to make it to the NFL. That's just how it works. That's fine. But like, just crushed completely. It's disgusting. And just want to shout out to all the IMDb reviews that I read. There's like 6, and like none of them get it. And it's like, wow, why'd you give this guy so much airtime to like platform and everything? It's like, okay, so you're illiterate. You don't know how to like read anything, because these are responsible filmmakers here. These are, I might even dare to say, journalists, because it really takes a piece of shit to be put on the air for that long. Overwhelming majority of the runtime of this movie is centered around him, and Kim talking to the camera, and to just be torn down by your own words. Immediate. Look at this guy's eyes. This mother effer's eyes.
I said that too. His eyes.
Everyone's saying that. They even said it in the Double Toasted thing, which, can we just talk for a moment how like Double Toasted was in the documentary for like a second? It is really gross how Roy Johnson manages to wake up in the morning and be a psychopath. He is a psychopath. He just has no empathy. It's incredible. And it lets slips in the worst ways possible. For instance, he says, like, when one of the athletes under his care says, critiques him correctly about something, he says, oh, that's something one of those dumb kids, one of those students says. And it's like, it's not even a joke. He's like, oh, wow, you just genuinely think these are your pawns that you get to yell at.
That was your first instinct to say.
That was your first instinct. There's a great Maya Angelou quote where it's like, when people tell you who they are the first time, believe them.
Believe them.
Yeah, something along those lines. But it's like, when they're being real, like, believe them. And That could not ring truer for this dude. And it is, and what, and I'll pass it off to Joe after this, but what I really, really, really was looking for going into this story, because I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea what was going on, or what go before I hit play on this movie. Once we got past the first third of this movie, where it's like establishing, oh, this is a countdown to disaster. And people are going to get hurt at the end of this. People are going to get screwed over, right? I was looking for something at the end, or hopefully something they even tackle, pun unintended, in the middle, right? Something they go for here, and they absolutely do, which I'm very happy for. And that is a systemic issue that we have, multiple systemic issues. And I think we'll drill into that extremely hard. I will personally, at least, later on, but I will pass it on to Joe, who, thank you again, Joe. I will thank you again for giving us this great documentary. We need to watch more documentaries here. And I think as the strikes continue on, that's exactly what we'll be doing.
Oh, god damn it, my chair's in the way. Fuck. God damn it. Well, I'm wearing Bishop Sycamore collar. Well, all right, here you go. This right here.
Look at that. Look at that, man.
I showed the image this exact image when you told, look at those eyes. It popped up on the screen. But this man right here is the devil. What I thought was absolutely the funniest thing I've seen in a long time, like as a YouTube video, and a double toasted, as Dom was saying, commentary, because that's how I discovered this story at first. I know Steve saw the game. I saw Double Toasted, a podcast that I often listen to, talk about this game, and they watch the highlights, which those clips from their Twitch stream are featured at the start of this documentary. I was like, damn, that's crazy, like a fake school and everything. And I never thought of the repercussions that would come to this at all. Now, I thought to myself, okay, yeah, obviously the guy who's in charge of this is probably going to get arrested, or, probably have to pay some fine. And then I watched this documentary and I learned way more, that this guy ruined so many lives. Not even the lives of the young adults, students, whatever you want to call them, like, students, young adults, like these people whose futures they were banking on, a way to get out of their low income areas by playing football and getting to a better college for free and having a chance playing the NFL, or just get a better education than probably they ever were going to get to in their entire lives. This man abused them by selling them this dream that, yeah, you might be done with high school, but we'll still keep you around because this is a legal school that will allow you to keep playing here, to get you a shot at being in a D1 college. And you're told this at such a young age, and you think, hey, this is gonna be great for me. I'm gonna this is how I'm gonna start my future, only to be put through like months of hell and embarrassment and torture by stupid chair, by this man, and just the lies he said, the lies he would spread. And not only did he ruin those people's lives, man, he ruined like the reputation of like another school, the school that was actually built around facing the toughest opponents out there, IMG Academy football. The coach of that football team, I don't know if they talked about this in the documentary. I had to look it up afterwards. But the coach of that school got fired after they found out that they faced Bishop Sycamore, which is a fake school. Because that coach didn't look into anything at all and everything. So it's like, okay, that livelihood of that man just got ruined just because he was probably like, nobody would actually create a fake high school football team and everything. And that's
how many times is that said though with Ben Furry, the investigator, the school sports investigator? How many times is that said? Like, this isn't a law because nobody thought that anybody would actually do this.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Continue.
Too.
Sorry to interrupt.
No. That's a great point you brought up, because I'm about to mention him right now and show him on screen. Ben Free he works for the high school organization that basically like runs like high school sports in general. The
This
OSHA,
dude's awesome
yeah,
too, by the way. This
the
dude's awesome.
the OHSAA, which is basically, if you don't know what that is, like if you participate in high school sports, this is basically the organization to make sure no one's cheating. They lay down the ground rules to make sure that this is a safe environment, but also a fair time for like these young students in high school to showcase their athletic abilities to eventually probably get a scholarship somewhere for
It's the Ohio equivalent of the IHSA.
yeah, actually that's what I meant to say.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the Illinois one.
Which we are.
But what was I gonna say with this? Oh, it's like he abused the powers that just weren't in a rule book. Just because in the rule book it says a fake high school can't play football, he went, well, it doesn't say it there, so I can definitely do it, and he gets away with it for years. This was a school that existed in 2019 and played so many games, and in 2021, that's when they got their fame and everything about it and whatnot, because it was broadcasted on ESPN. But I mean, this school, the Roy Johnson, nothing's really come of this. It's just like this man could still get away with this if he really wanted to. There are bills of hotel fees that this man has not paid at all. So many people
it's the shamelessness. It's the shamelessness.
Yeah.
The cravenness. Just no sense of consequence. And it's like it goes to show how much of our society is built on hey, you should be embarrassed about this, right?
Dude, and I'm not even gonna get into like the craziest things that goes into like the second half of this documentary, but I'll mention this. He ruins these kids even more by applying their name, their social security number to credit cards under their name and using those credit cards. Yeah, loans.
That was the part where my jaw hit the fucking floor.
Dude, I mean, my jaw hits the floor like later on when it talks about more of the repercussions that these kids deal with, where it looks like this one kid has a shot at something and then somebody does some digging up, and I was just like, my heart fucking broke for that kid, man. I mean, I was just like, to go from and I'm glad you brought up the Fire Festival, Dom, as an example because that documentary is hilarious. And as much as the Fire Festival did ruin some people's lives that lived on that island, that they abused their services.
That is true. But guess what? They were all the black natives that are people like the citizens of that country that still got screwed over as a result of this.
It's brought up in that documentary at the last 5 minutes. It's a very good documentary. It's very entertaining and everything because you see how crazy the situation can get. My one criticism of that was it doesn't really go into the fallout of what Fire Festival did, not only for those workers, but for the island itself. It just really focused on the guy that came up with Fire Festival and
Billy McFarland.
Billy McFarland, thank you, yeah.
It's entertaining, but it's not investigative like this one is.
This one goes into everything. I mean, it breaks down everything. And for all those people being like, well, how could you have that guy sit there and everything? Dude, this man literally lays out the facts for you. It is coming out of his mouth. He is the perpetrator. It's like if O.J. Simpson got a camera, sat down, and literally went, okay, I did do it, and this is how I did it. And it just laid it out.
And he's the one concerned about body language in the opening minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
What a great way to set the tone. Do I look like a con artist?
Do I look like a con man?
What an incredible... It's like you just spoiled the movie right there. It's like, you're just gonna okay. Yeah, he thinks he's smart. He is Donald Trump. He thinks he's smart and he can just keep failing upward and screw over a lot of people. You mentioned that
too. I don't want to go
down
no
consequence.
I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I did see that per GQ Sports, who did an article about this movie late last month, they said some stories told by Johnson, including his admiration for former President Donald Trump, went on the cutting room floor. I wonder if that's why I didn't go back and listen to it, and I'm half motivated too. But in the beginning of the movie, or it's the HBO Max promo, whatever we're calling it, in the very beginning, it says listen to the BS High
podcast
companion podcast.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like Rowan Free, the documentarians behind this, talking about like what they had to or what they cut out.
I can't wait to listen to that.
Because I mean, you put this jag off in front of a camera. I mean, he's going to give you the key to the city over here. I mean, you just let him keep talking over here. He's going to incriminate himself. He's sociopathic.
He thinks he's so smart.
In the way that he talks. And there's parts of this too. And like, I just saw, it was last week, I believe. Last week, 2 weeks ago, time's a construct. I don't remember. I think it was last week. I was watching CBS Chicago News, and I had it on at work. And I saw that they interviewed Billy McFarland, the founder of Fire Festival.
Yeah.
And how he was planning Fire Festival too.
Yeah.
Tickets on sale now. No lineup, no date, no location. Tickets on sale now. Go rush and buy them. And it made me think for a second. I'm like, there are absolutely going to be jackoffs that buy these tickets.
Oh, yeah.
There are going to be people that buy these tickets, despite the kerfuffle, and that's putting it mildly, despite the kerfuffle that was Fire Festival, there will be people who buy these tickets. And then a week later, I watched this movie on this guy right here, who is simultaneously so smart, this Roy Johnson, who is simultaneously so smart because you have to have some intuition, some knowledge of the paperwork you have to file in the, you know what I mean? The gears you have to work to get this operation even off the ground and even wind up finding the right avenues to get on ESPN on prime time. I don't care if it's August. NFL preseason's going on in August. There's stuff happening in late August to get on ESPN to face one of the best, if not the best prep schools in IMG Academy, to face them in football on national television. You have to be smart, but you have to be categorically stupid at the same time to admit some of what he admits to in this documentary, which is knowingly dodging hotel bills, which is knowingly
not feeding the kids.
Not feeding the kids, not giving them food.
From an objective point of view, it's like, I get it. You want to be cheap and not give them proper nutrition or what they need as athletes
equipment
who are doing all this, or equipment. Like, I get you want to be cheap, but like, you also want to win, right? Like, you should.
One of
like,
the best
okay,
voices.
You don't care about the children, fine. I guess they're adults, but you don't care about your athletes, fine. You don't care. They're pawns to you. You still want to utilize them to their maximum extent as objects to win games, right?
Herm Edwards, you play to win the game.
Yeah, it's like what, and actually, there is like, we are going to get into the systemic side of this, where it's like, yeah, there was nothing in place, no one would think to do this, but they also address where it's like, yeah, but what was his end game? Like, what was he thinking? Like, it actually didn't work out for him. Like, it's not like he succeeded.
And this is where I wanted to throw it. One of the best voices in this documentary is a gentleman named Bomani Jones. He's
I love that. I love that
journalist.
Dude. Never saw him
very
before.
intelligent dude. Bomani Jones. I hadn't seen a ton of him before this. I knew of him, but he gets a lot of speaking time in this, probably second most to Roy Johnson himself. And he deserves it because he's very eloquent. He's very thoughtful and he's very perceptive. And he talks about, though, he goes, I love his line in this movie. He goes, this is one of those cons. And he's got this very distinctive voice. I'm not trying to emulate it, but he's like, this is one of those cons that he actually wanted people to see.
Yeah.
Like, he wanted people to witness. Like, to get on national television where you are going to be the subject of conversation because TV is such this thermometer, this barometer of existence. You wanted people to see this whole thing and thinking it wasn't going to get exposed. I find it very difficult to write reviews of documentaries. And because it's like, again, am I invested in the story? Do I find the story interesting or do I find the approach interesting? And I love the way that this documentary is conducted because it's equal parts talking head. The movie takes on like almost a different tone when Roy Johnson's on camera. It's dark. You could see Joe's background over here. You get the idea. It's dark. It's got almost like, the checkered stadium lights in the background. It's got a style to it. And then you talk to the kids, the actual let's call them victims.
Yeah,
the victims of this whole thing. and they're in like this warehouse, this sort of like loft setting where it's brightly lit, the cameras are all on them, and it's fascinating the way that they portray these kids. Trailian Harris, I believe, is the quarterback of Bishop Sycamore, and he gets a lot of screen time too. You get a lot of screen time from a handful of different guys, the running back, the wide receiver, a lot of these kids. And a lot of these kids whose high school performance was either incomplete or shoddy. They didn't have much collegiate, they didn't have really any collegiate offers or anything like that, but they were still taken advantage of by this guy who saw that in Ohio you can exploit this kind of thing, specifically under the ruse, because that's what it was, a ruse, under the ruse of a religious school, which comes out in the third act of the movie too, which is why there is no, because like the whole time of this movie, at least for like the first hour and 10 minutes, it's like there's got to be some repercussions for this guy. There's got to be something. And then you get the very end of it with the title card saying that, like, the Bishop Sycamore COF Academy, the school that was the precursor to Bishop Sycamore, was filed under a religious school, and Ohio doesn't have any authority, any governing authority over this. And it shows you what a grimy ass business sports is. And as a sports fan, you have to recognize it. I'm somebody who's a big sports fan. I have to recognize it too. You know, you hear about the success stories in sports. You hear about the Tom Brady's, the Peyton Mannings, in modern day, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Josh Allen. You hear about all the success stories in sports. You don't hear about the failures. You don't hear about the failures and the people that got suckered into a school like this, a situation like this that irreparably fucked up all their chances. The next documentary that needs to be made, I'm going to tell you right now, the next documentary that needs to be made is on the Junior Basketball Association, the JBA.
Oh, yeah.
LeVar Ball's school. That's the next documentary that needs to be made here, is on LeVar Ball's school. If you don't know LeVar Ball, that's the father of Lonzo Ball. He's currently on the Chicago Bulls. LaMelo Ball, who's currently on the Charlotte Hornets, and LiAngelo Ball, who I think is on the G League of Charlotte, the Greensboro Swarm, I think they are. The JBA was essentially a platform for LeVar Ball's two sons, because by that point, Lonzo was in the NBA. For his two sons, it lasted one season, took a lot of high school players that were going to enter college, took them in for one season only, paid them for about half the season, and then completely vanished. It's a league that is still not folded formally, but it also, because of the fact that these kids that were out of high school went to the JBA and not the NCAA, it ruined their college eligibility. They could not go to college after this league. They could not play college ball because of this league. And now Ball's kids are in the NBA or the NBA G League, whatever it may be. And a lot of these kids had to go to Australia, if they were lucky, to still play professional ball on some country, on some continent. It's not the only sports documentary that should be made about the scams that exist in high school and college sports. That's all I'll say. Joe, you don't have to, again, I've read a lot about the JBA. I just don't know of another time I'm going to be able to bring that up. So I just wanted to throw that out there too. The floor is yours for what angle you want to take this review for BS High. I just wanted to get that out there though about the JBA.
You're good. I'm trying to remember where I left off at, because we've been all so very excited to keep talking about this thing. But it's really, it really hurts too by the end of this documentary, where it's like, it starts out and like I'm laughing about it because again they're playing the clip, like I said, from the Double Toasted clip. The Double Toasted.
It's okay to laugh, by the way. Yeah, it's okay to laugh at some of those plays.
Yeah,
totally. It's fine.
And I'm laughing about how this guy's getting away with it. And it's not until like the last half of this documentary where they bring in the high schoolers and you're getting everything from their perspective, that you realize, like, oh my God, no, this dude ruined people. And I was just like, this is terrible. And then my laughing went from like, oh, dude, this is hilarious. This reminded me so much of the Fire Festival documentary to, oh my God, no, this is like legit investigative journalism. Like this is a tragedy that is like not being told. Because again, when this all came out in the news, people only focused on the fact it was a fake high school game and that this guy, you know, got on TV and everything. No one focused on the players. And people who did focus on the players just clowned on them. They didn't realize like what actually was going on, because, you know, word wasn't getting out about it. And if people like people have like Ben Free, if he was listened to, this could have been stopped way ahead of time. He
was researching it long before they were ever on ESPN.
Yeah, this dude was there from the get-go, and he kept sending like journalists like little like tidbits of information, like, you guys might want to look into this. I don't think this is a real school. You know, they haven't had any graduations in 2 years. How the hell could you be a school and not have any graduations? 0 in the year of 2019 and 2020. Yeah, man. I mean, it is just shocking where it goes. I would love to review more documentaries with you guys, especially ones like this, because I mean, some of my favorite reviews on Sleepless back on the radio shows when we did talk about documentaries. One being one of my favorite films of the year it came out, which was Won't You Be My Neighbor. I would love to review more stuff like that and everything. I'm going to pass it off to Dom to see where else he wants to take it. I was just kind of giving my final thoughts there.
I just want to drive home the fact that personally, I think sports is a blood industry in this country. It sounds hyperbolic. I'm 100% serious, because people's bodies are on the line. It's okay to like sports. Let me say that. It's okay to be a fan of sports. It's okay to be a super fan of sports. It's okay if you're a person of color who wants to make it big in professional sports with a dream of playing in the NBA, being the next Michael Jordan, being the next Tom Brady or whatever. That's 1,000% fine, right? You could say the same thing about singers, dancers, theater actors, whatever. It's all the same thing, pursuing a dream. But the thing with sports is that you are, as everyone was saying, when they played 2 games nearly back to back within like 48 hours of each other,
dude,
you are running into a wall 30 times at full speed.
Yeah.
And then being asked to do it like just that alone, right? Like when you play football, particularly, you're on a timer, right? It's not like singing where Jimmy Buffett can just pick up a guitar whenever and, you know, still sound all right. Rick Astley just put out a sequel to Never Gonna Give You Up, and he sounds amazing, right? He can do that whenever he wants to. When you play football, you're on a timer.
Any sport.
You're given, yeah, actually, yeah, absolutely. Your CTE is a thing.
Yep.
50 years from now, I have a feeling we're going to look at football and be like, holy shit, this was medieval. This was absolutely.
That's why I never begrudge. And again, I'm more I don't mean to interrupt you, Dom, but like, like when it comes to like, and Joe, I know you like football a lot too. I follow it very closely. Like contract holdouts. One of the most recent was Lamar Jackson with the Baltimore Ravens quarterback, who said, trade me, who told the Baltimore Ravens after 5 years, trade me. I'm not going to play for you guys unless you're going to pay me. I don't begrudge athletes. Nick Bosa with the 49ers just recently got his contract.
Fucking Scottie Pippen with the Bulls. I mean, they talked about that in The Last Dance.
I don't begrudge athletes that are like, fuck you, pay me.
Yeah.
To these billion-dollar owners. Fuck you, pay me. I don't care about a cap. The cap's the salary cap's not my problem. That's your problem. I'm a good player for your organization. That's
with their
your
taxpayer subsidized stadiums, yeah.
That's your problem. Fuck you, pay me. Because I have a finite, it's like Dom said, I'm not Frankie Valli at 84 years old where I can still tour. I'm not, you know what I mean? I have a finite number of years where my quote unquote prime is from 23 years old to maybe 34, depending on the position I play in any given sport. baseball and hockey have longer lifespans. The average career in football is about 4 years. Like, I have a finite number of time where I can make my money. So I don't begrudge any player, even players I love that are like that hold out, that sit out a training camp. And I'm not putting my body on the line. Why am I going to put my body on the line for you? Pay me. You got the money. I don't care about a salary. Again, I don't care about that's your problem. That is your issue to figure out.
And there are two things that I absolutely adore about this documentary that they get right, which is that they get into the systemic side of things.
Bomani Jones.
Bomani Jones, absolutely. Like he pretty much narrates, you know, the whole the core of that idea, and the directors, you know, they allow ample time. Like, it's not just at the last 5 minutes to make you feel a little bad. No, they dig into this. They get into the very like psychology of it all. And I also want to applaud the directors for confronting Roy Johnson, and just being willing to be on camera in a non you know, egotistical way. I mean, like, so like you did this, right? They asked the follow-up questions that some lesser documentaries will leave a little too much out there. Like, you don't want to be like handhold the audience, or we're getting into like the mechanics of documentaries now. And what I like about them, what I like about the good ones, is that they find the right balance between and like pressing hard on the subject. There's a great pair of documentaries called The Fog. The first one is called The Fog of War, which is the defense, which is, oh my God, I forgot the name of the documentarian. He interviews the
Errol
defense
Morris.
Thank you so much. Yes, Errol Morris. Also did Thin Blue Line.
Tabloid.
Yes. And he confronts McNamara over the Vietnam War effectively, and he presses McNamara on these things, and he's able to get a rapport, give and take. And then he did the same exact thing with Donald Rumsfeld on the Iraq War, which is another great documentary. Donald Rumsfeld, a lot less tactful and a lot more craven than McNamara. But anyway, I'm very glad that they did that with this documentary. And yeah, the thing about American sports is that we capitalize on it. We capitalize on it. DraftKings, Madden 2000, whatever, whatever app or this or that, every sports podcast, we capitalize the living hell out of people's bodies being absolutely destroyed. And again, I want to acknowledge they want to destroy their bodies, and it's whatever, because it's a sport, and I get that. I'm not saying to ban sports or whatever. It's just that disproportionately it affects poor people who their only way out of these bad situations, because the rest of society is effed in a myriad of ways. The only way that they really feel like they can get out of this situation is to run into that wall 30 times in a 2-hour time span, right? It's so gross on a way that you cannot fathom. Even this documentary doesn't have time to go into it. And yet I don't even think any audience has the capacity to take all that in 2 hours, because that is the horror story. That is the American dream. So let me just say, BS High did an excellent job in going as far as they possibly could without it being the full runtime of the movie, introducing this spectacle of a match that was this crazy ass thing that was so craven and so disgusting, and then managing to pivot to a very effective commentary on society and America, which I'm being a little facetious on, but really so. So I will say with that, I will say 3.5 stars. Just one of the best documentaries that I've seen this year, which is, I think, only a handful of them, and definitely one to watch. If you don't like sports, this will reinforce why you don't like it. Let me say that. You need to watch this movie if you don't like sports. So go for it.
Excellent documentary on all fronts. Really leads to a great discussion. I kind of want to go and listen to the BS High podcast. I think it's a 2-3 episode podcast.
If I listen to that, it may go to 4 stars. like straight up, just as a supplement.
because I love talking about this because the great documentaries make you want to talk about them, and not in the way of like sermonizing about them or like being didactic about it. There's that great meme of like that painting of Jesus Christ speaking to the disciples, and it's like me to my coworkers after I watch a Netflix documentary. You know what I mean? Which we've all felt like at one point or another. It's me after reading Wikipedia, one Wikipedia article or another. I can relate to that. But this movie though is so. It's one of those situations, again, I go back to, and I've used this phrase quite a bit, is like if there were a movie made about this, pretend the story didn't exist. If there were a movie made about this, we would be on this very same podcast right now talking about how incredulous and impossible it was.
Yeah.
But it's not.
What if he won? Like, they say that. What if they won?
Yeah, what if they got the onside kick and they actually won? that's the other angle of this thing, though. No, it's 3.5 out of 4 stars for me. Thoroughly, and enjoy is not the right word, but as a documentary is concerned, enjoyed it. And I also encourage you to, and this is my last statement. I have not listened to it yet. It is on my list of things to listen to though this week. It's not the podcast. At the very tail end of the documentary, during the end credits, they're giving you sort of a title card wrap up of the kids and where they're at nowadays, some of which are volunteering in football organizations trying to get back in the game, some of which are working full-time jobs. The end credits song, Back on the BS, is made by one of the kids who became a rapper. Yeah. His name is JD. He goes by another name. It's like NBHJ now. But here's what I did though after the documentary, mainly because I was nodding my head along to that Back on the BS song. I did like that song a lot, the end credits song.
Collab what I did was
immediately after the documentary ended, I added, it's an album. It's called Life After Bishop Sycamore. And I would encourage you to go on Spotify and go on Apple Music and look up Life After Bishop Sycamore and add that album to your playlist and play it. Because you know what? The way the game works nowadays, I know a little bit about it. I don't know a lot about it. But you know what? I'll give this kid a few streams. I want to listen to this album. I want to listen to it, and I'll give him some streaming revenue. Because you know what? What he put his body through, what he put his life through, and he's one of the guys in the documentary that gets extremely candid on camera.
Yeah.
And gets emotional. I'm going to listen to the album and I do my part on that. So that's my last parting message of this is there's look up the album on Spotify or Apple Music. It's called Life After Bishop Sycamore, and add it to your playlist. Give it a spin. I'm going to listen to it as soon as I finish this Jimmy Buffett album I'm listening to at the moment. As soon as I
did not help your case.
I'm a very versatile individual, Dominic. I'm a very versatile individual.
I know you are.
I can go from Kid Rock's All Summer Long to Straight Outta Compton to Lil Durk's All My Life to Hank Williams' Hey Good Looking to Miles Davis in the matter of that. Do not doubt me on my music taste right there. But no, that's all I'll say is just look up Life After Bishop Sycamore on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your music, add that album. So that's a good, they don't tell you it in the documentary, but it's a good way to support one of the victims, because that's what they ultimately were, victims of this story. And the slimy con man of Roy Johnson, who the movie ends with him talking about this amazing plot and this almost like schizophrenic episode that he goes through about how hearing he's being called for greater things. And then the following title card is he got arrested from stealing TVs from an Ohio Best Buy under a fake name. So support the up and coming rapper who put his body on the line for this shit, for Christ's sake. That's where I'm going to leave this on. 3.5 out of 4 stars.